The Korean traditions, gates and thresholds, doorways, village boundary, and the last rites. In Korea, the threshold to the other world is rarely framed as a single mythical bridge or an iconographic slope. It begins in the house. The gate that matters is domestic, a bed, a bedside table, a final bowl, and the ritual choreography that turns a private death into a public passage. The family, the village, and the shaman, or the officiating minister, are the architects of the crossing. In short, Korean thresholds are social and ritual before they are mythic. Beginning with the household as first border. Funerary sequence in Korea traditionally begins at home. The dead are tended where they lay. A wake, incense, candles, a white cloth placed, and the immediate family arranged to receive visitors. Clothes may be changed, the body prepared, and petitions uttered aloud. These acts do devotional and juridical work at once. They mark the deceased as belonging to a lineage, notify the ancestors, and set the communal ledger in motion. The household is both the theater and the boundary. Until the body leaves it, the person remains within the social and ritual economy of the family. Next, the Ksitigarbha, cleansing or scent of rite, and the shaman's hand. You see, where Shinto might focus on impurity and China on magistrates, Korea's indigenous practice often turns to the shaman mudang to cleanse and escort the soul. Central to this is the Ksitigarbha, a core sequence in many funeral rites, a ritual of washing, purification, and symbolic unbinding designed to remove attachment and pollution, so the soul can pass on without clinging. The shaman leads chant and song, plays ritual percussion, and acts narrative sequences about the soul's origin and destiny, and sometimes performs actions that ritually send off or recover a wandering spirit. These actions are both techno, a practiced ritual, and therapy. They manage grief and restore social equilibrium. And then, of course, family, community, and the village boundary. Korean thresholds are communal. Neighbors, kin, and local officials participate. The village's boundaries and its civic rituals matter. Historically, village rites and community solidarity guaranteed that a person's passage would not be neglected. A procession to the grave or to a temporary mortuary station was a public affirmation that the deceased had been accounted for. Even where Buddhism or Confucian forms dominate the rite's outward shape, memorial tablets, bowing sequences, incense offerings, the local community remains the primary guarantor of passage. That public ordering is what turns death from a private catastrophe into a solvable civic matter. Hybrid registers, Confucian, Buddhist, and shamanic choreography. Korean funerary practice is syncretic. On one hand, you will find shamanic good, drama, and the Ksitigarbha, where specialists sing the soul story. On the other hand, Confucian style ancestor rites, formalized jesa, structure mourning and filial ritual, and Buddhist elements, chants, temple rites, and the doctrinal language of karmic consequence often overlay the sequence. The result is a ritual grammar that trust specialists, shamans, or priests, expects filial responsibility, and keeps many routes open for ensuring a good passage. Practically, that means families use whatever ensemble of rites best fits local custom and religious affiliation. Mudang led cleansing, plus a Buddhist chant, plus a Confucian memorial meal is not unusual. Now, practical chronology, wake, procession, grave or cremation. In performance terms, the threshold work follows a predictable arc. A wake, often several days, official send-off, procession, and then burial or cremation. The shaman's ritual may occur before the body leaves the house or at a graveyard or temple sites. The procession itself marks the literal crossing of the local boundary. The household civic debt is paid in public view. You see, in modern Korea, cremation has become common, but the threshold choreography, the cleansing, the chants, the offerings, remains functionally similar. The community marks the transfer of the person from living care into ancestral memory. If other cultures build bridges or list ledges, Korea tends to say, let us worship properly, sing the right song, and make sure the neighbors saw relief. The emphasis is domestic competence, funerary housekeeping as social technology. So, why this matters socially? The function of threshold rites. You see, these rites do social work. They prevent restless dead, guishin. They remove household pollution, hun. They shore up property and lineage claims. And they give mourning a structure. The shamanic jijim is not an exotic add-on. It is the community's way of ensuring that grief does not become social disorder. In a society that prizes filial duty and communal harmony, funerary thresholds are conservative technologies. They conserve the family, its memory, and its civil place. Transit and Psychopomps, Jeoseung-saja, mudang, and the hand that guides. If you like your afterlife with a courier service and a helpful app, Korea has both a crime delivery crew and an analog human help desk. You see, the psychopompic imagination in Korea mixes native shamanic practice and popular folk figures with imported Buddhist or Yeomra imagery. And the result is a wonderfully practical afterlife. One part messenger, one part ritual specialist, one part village committee. Beginning with Jeoseung-saja, the netherworld messengers. Most people in Korea recognize the figure of Jeoseung-saja, literally messengers of the netherworld. In popular portrayals, they are the ones who come when the time is up, sometimes skeletal and solemn, sometimes looking like a very officious clerk. They collect the soul, read the docket, and lead it along. They can be frightening in film and folktale, but in older popular belief, their role is functional, rather than moralizing. They fetch, confirm, and deliver. So think of them as stern porters with a respectable work ethic. Next, mudang, the living specialist who negotiates the passage. Enter the mudang or shaman, the living human specialist whose instruments are drum, song, and narrative. The mudang good, especially the Ksitigarbha sequence, acts as both staging and therapy. Songs, bonpuri, narrate the dead's pedigree and fates. Ritual gestures disentangle attachments, and trance states sometimes allow the shaman to locate and name our wandering spirits. The mudang is both a ritual cleaner and an advocate. She sings the soul story correctly, averts malevolent clinging, and sometimes negotiates with other worldly beings on behalf of the living. Though, putting it simply, before the heavenly courier does his paperwork, the mudang tries to make sure the paperwork reads well. Next, ritual choreography, how sanding works in practice. A typical send-off is choreography. The shaman lays out names, offerings, and narrative lines. Percussion and chant create liminal rhythm. Ritual props, mirrors, white cloth, or paper offerings are staged, and the mudang intones the bonpuri that made the soul's journey. And family members perform prescribed gestures. At some point in the drama, the Jeoseung-saja may be invoked, cited, or imagined to appear. Sometimes in the shaman's trance, sometimes in a folk vision, and the soul is ritually handed over. This is not cosmetic theater. For communities, it reduces anxiety, guarantees social memory, and importantly, prevents the dead becoming Grishin, restless ghosts. Now, hybrid psychopomps in Buddhism sits at the table, because Korea is a cultural crossroad. The native and imported sit together. The Buddhist Yeomra, Yama or King of the Dead, and the 10 Kings model appear in temple murals and funeral prints. Buddhist priests may chant sutras to speed the dead toward a favorable rebirth, and Ksitigarbha style bodhisattva imagery offers rescue for the particularly trapped. In practice, then, a family may hire mudang for jittim, then go to a temple for parita and merit transfer, and finally present a Confucian-style memorial meal, a multi-channel life insurance plan. And lastly, shamanic narratives as practical manuals. The bonpuri narratives, for example, Dodang Sunbi and Jeongcheung Kaksi cycles, are not mere songs. They function as mnemonic manuals. They rehearse the right names, the right offerings, and the right story. When a shaman sings them, she is both narrating and instructing. The song tells the soul where to go, tells the living how to act, and tells the spirit world this family has done what is due. That triple communication is the funerary protocol in sonic form. So, if other traditions hand you a stern registrar or a ledger, Korea says, we'll call the correct song, and if the ledger gets messy, the shaman will sing the amendments. It's practical, theoretical, and genuinely community-minded. Court and Inhabitants, Yeomra, Siwang, Ksitigarbha, and the mixed courts. Korea's underworld is ecumenical by design. It borrows the courtroom from China, the karmic ledger from Buddhism, and the human relations and remedies from local shamanic practice. The result is neither purely legalistic nor purely ritualistic. It is a hybrid theater in which judges, shamans, bodhisattvas, and families take turns speaking for the dead. Yeomra and the Siwang, the imported magistrates. At the center of the Buddhist layered imagination sits Yeomra, Korean form of Yama, and with him the Siwang, the 10 kings who preside over sequential hearings, read records, and hand down sentences or remissions. And these figures and their iconography come via the Chinese cosmological and pictorial tradition, the 10 kings or Yama courts, and appear in Korean temple murals and popular prints. When a family goes to a temple, they often encounter precisely this courtly image of judgment. So, in short, when Buddhism sits at the table, the afterlife looks very much like a bureaucratic tribunal. Then, Ksitigarbha or Jeoseung, the rescuing bodhisattva with practical charm. Against the sometimes terrifying Siwang there stands Ksitigarbha, or in Korean, Jeoseung-saja, the bodhisattva famed for vows to rescue beings from suffering and to minister in the hells. Ksitigarbha functions as an intercessor in popular devotion. Temples invoke him to shorten sentences, to ease suffering, and to offer a remedial path for those held in the court's register. His presence softens the courtroom drama with a consistent note of mercy, a theological safety valve, if you will. Then, how the mixed court actually works. Ritual, registry, and advocacy. Well, in practice, the mixed court is dramaturgy with options. A family might bring a shamanic cleansing, Ksitigarbha, to ensure the soul's readiness. Then a priestly chanting, Buddhist paritta, and merit transfer attempts to tip the karmic balance in deceased's favor. The temple mural, Siwang, provides the visual script, and the bodhisattva's motive is the spiritual appeal. The result is a procedural ecology. Registry, karma, ritual, shamanic cleansing, advocacy, Ksitigarbha's intercession, and social petition, family offerings, all play roles in the outcome. And this is why Korean practice is so pragmatically plural. Different channels exist because they work in different registers. And lastly, local spirits, ancestral ghosts, and the court's limits. Now, despite the presence of judges and registers, indigenous categories remain lively. Village guardian spirits, ancestral ghosts, whether benign or resentful, and the still human Han that binds the bereaved to the dead continue to be important actors. The mixed court cannot entirely displace these local realities. A neglected grave, an unresolved family quarrel, or a badly performed good still produces a Kishin, or a wandering ancestor that no mural can fully educate. That is why mudang, family, and temple often act together. The court supplies a cosmological frame, the village supplies a moral ledger, and the shaman supplies the procedural remedies. Basically, if other cultures offer you either bare bureaucracy or lonely decay, Korea offers both, and then adds a mediator with a drum, practical, dramatic, and surprisingly consoling. Judgment, reward, and cultural function, ritual efficacy, filial petition, and karmic borrowings. If the you puts the dead through a municipal audit and Yomi leaves them to rot in silence, Korea politely schedules both. A shaman sings, judges register, and the living file petitions, all aimed at turning a private loss into socially repairable accounts. So, the short version. In Korea, outcomes are negotiable. Souls are neither simply condemned nor left entirely to their fate. A living ritual economy, shamanic songs, Buddhist sutras, Confucian memorials, combines with imagined judges to create a thorough, practical system for influencing what happens after death. The moral mechanics are pragmatic. The family does things that work, and those things are understood to have real effects on the dead's itinerary. Now, ritual efficacy, good, sutra chanting, and merit transfer. At the heart of Korean post-mortem work is efficacy. The good, the cleansing or send-off, aims to remove the soul's impurities, disentangle attachments, and put the spirit on the right roads. Shamans enact narrative songs, bonpuri, percussion, and symbolic gestures that clean the file of the deceased. Families often complement shamanic action with Buddhist chanting to accumulate merits and redirect karmic consequence, or Confucian-style memorial rites to show up lineage claims. Practically speaking, these layered performances produce the result communities care about: fewer restless spirits, a smoother rebirth, and a restored household equilibrium. Next, filial petition, offerings, ancestral tablets, and the civic petitioning of judges. Korean practice keeps the living deeply implicated. Offerings at ancestral altars, the periodic jasa memorial meals, and the petitions at temples all function as civic petitions. They are ways of transferring merit, repaying debts, and reminding cosmic administrators that the family has fulfilled its obligations. Where Chinese city god petitions appeal to local magistrates, Korea's petitions are multi-channel. Mudang, temple, and household altar all file their appeals. The effect is social. Ritual action becomes a visible record that the community can check, and, in many imaginations, that the underworld notices. Now, karmic borrowings and the mixed court, Buddhist registers, and Ksitigarbha's intercession. You see, Buddhist doctrine supplies the vocabulary of karmic consequence and a set of institutional actors: Yeomra, Siwang, karmic mirror, 10 kings, that appear in murals and temple liturgy. Families therefore combine the shaman's cleaning with Buddhist sutra recitation and votive offerings to bodhisattvas such as Ksitigarbha, or in Korean Jeoseung, the merciful rescue of beings in hell, who functions as an intercessor to lessen terms or speed release. The combination is pragmatically dialectical. Ritual underdoes pollution, merit modifies karmic weight, and devotional intercession petitions for clemency. Then, temporary punishments, reintegration, and prevention of Kwishin. Like other East Asian systems, Korea commonly treats punitive after effects as corrective and temporary rather than eternal damning, especially in popular imagination. The The aim is social reintegration, punishments and ordeals, if they occur in law, are meant to teach or purge, after which the soul moves on. Most importantly, the living's ritual work is designed to prevent a deceased person turning into a guijin, a resentful, lingering ghost, who burdens the family. The social function is therefore prophylactic. Do the rites well, and you protect your line, your property, and your neighbor's peace. Lastly, civic theology. Why all this matters for the living? You see, the Korean system is a civic theology. It stabilizes households, preserves the lineage memory, and channels grief into recognized tasks. The mudang, the temple, and the family form a distributed bureaucratic apparatus that manages loss. That apparatus enforces social norms, filial duty, proper burial, appropriate mourning. Not just communal cohesion, neighbors attend, authorities are notified, and offers psychological comfort. Ritual makes absence legible and loss manageable. So, in short, the afterlife is a public project as much as it is a metaphysical hypothesis. Korea's afterlife is the original multi-provider funeral plan, shaman, temple, family, all contractually obliged to keep the ledger tidy. So, pay the rituals, keep the ancestors fed, and the bureaucracy above and below stays reasonably placated.